Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
And welcome back to the Real Investment Show, the Friday edition. We're so glad you're here. It's a little cool this morning out there. Sort of feels invigorating. I know you don't. Danny's like, what? I need more mosquito. I don't even think mosquitoes die in this cold.
No,
I saw
they
one
really
today.
don't.
They have become some super mosquito.
Well, it hadn't been cold enough this year yet. We need one good freeze to kill off the larvae.
It hasn't been that way.
No, not this season.
It's been very unusual. We usually get something. Maybe this is the month we get more cooler days. But
so I'm growing a crop of lizards at my house to eat them up.
Okay.
The little green lizards, the chameleons. Yeah.
You got a lizard farm going.
Yes, lizard ranch.
The Clanton. What are you doing for retirement? Oh, the Clanton Lizard Ranch. Hey, listen, people have great ideas. I live through a lot of people when they come up to us and they give us their retirement plans. I love to hear what people envision, what they feel that next stage is going to look like. And if you're planning smart, it's great. Because the unknown, even if you need to catch up and buckle down a little bit more, I think the unknown is more frightening. It's just like, God forbid you find out you're ill, or at least you know what it is compared to why am I feeling this way? And you come up with a plan, right? Something to get it done. So I think people don't plan because they're afraid. And I think part of the reason is that the industry pushes the fact that, you need like $8 million. Otherwise, forget it. And then I think people just sort of go, you know what? I give up. It's not worth it. And don't have that attitude, because you would be surprised how people cobble together or come up with what I call the imperfect, perfect retirement that is designed just for them, right? Danny? I mean,
right.
You can't say that there's a number, a magic number that you have. The number is your number. And the number that you have in your head could be totally different than the number you need. And sometimes I notice people self-sabotage the number in their head because they may never get to that number. Or they work longer, even maybe they don't need to, because their lifestyle doesn't fit the number. Like they live very reasonable, and they can maybe have more freedom of choice to decide what they want to do as opposed to staying in the same job. Because, I need $4 million. I need $2 million. And you're like, well, no, based on what you told us. And most important, we're going to rail a little bit about Social Security. You want to make sure that you're doing the right thing with Social Security. There is the National Institute for Retirement Security came out with that set of roughly 40% of Americans receive their sole income from Social Security. That's a frightening number. That's very worrying when you think about, my gosh, I can see it. I think maybe the number is not as bad as that as I read other reports. But we know when we do plans, Danny, even if someone has met their number, having Social Security done or taken properly really increases the probability of success, even for those who have been the best at saving money. And why is that? Well, I mean, give us an idea, like why is Social Security, why does it add so much to it?
Well, any income that you can not outlive is certainly going to help. And
that's absolutely right.
It's not going to fluctuate based on market valuations. And so that's so important to have that. And, one thing is, you want to build this base of income, essentially. And this is one way to help do so. So if you could have Social Security meet your non-discretionary expenses, this really, really helps a plan. And so a lot of times, give you an example, we have a client retiring early. In fact, going to retire, well before most people, but they're going to have to live off assets and draw things down because they're going to delay Social Security. And the plan works wonderfully because of the amount that they've saved over time. But then on the flip side, they have this great income that's going to be able to help them down the road. So while, going back to kind of how you started the segment, Rich, in a lot of ways, many people's retirement looks so different because some people say, look, I'm going to retire and I only want to live off the interest. And that's one big, I think, misconception. That's one of the hardest things to do because we've been
I'm only
accumulators.
going to live off. Yeah, I'm going to live off just the dividends or income.
Correct.
Years ago, I'm just in this a little bit longer than you. You could do that.
Yeah.
Right? Because
yeah.
you were making enough in income from bonds and so forth, even though maybe you weren't combating what inflation was at that point, or your household rate of inflation, it was still feasible to say, maybe I can create an income stream from what I earn in dividends and what I earn in bond income. That has not been the way for a very long time.
No, that's right. I mean, I haven't been doing this since the 1900s like you, but
Yeah, no, that's true.
15, 16 years
The
ago.
Dow was at 1 when I started. We were still
15
under the tree. We were trading.
Yeah, that's right. So
button
15,
would trade.
16 years ago,
Yeah.
you could recreate that income very easily and live off of it. And now, it's just been a different story the last decade. And so that's one of the most difficult things. And so there's a lot of people who are actually having to dip into, what they've earned over time. Now, the neat thing about Social Security with this is that you may be drawing down assets for a time being, but as you get that guaranteed income that kicks in, and you have to do this right, you have to do this at full retirement age or later, because if not, there's other ramifications which we can get into. It helps your plan immensely. And to be able to delay this and get the full amount at full retirement age or get the amount that grows 8% a year. Rich, how many places can we put money that grows 8% a year right now? Guaranteed. All right.
I can't even get junk bonds at that.
I know.
I should be getting 12, but I'm getting 4, and people are yet chasing those yields without realizing how much risk that they're taking. I think the concept you want to try to relay, and you're right, Danny, is take Social Security out of it because there's a lot of people get their own thoughts about it. If I could come to you and say, listen, I'm going to give you a guaranteed income for the rest of your life, no matter what it is, right? That you don't have to depend on variable assets. I'll take that all day long. We used to have pensions that did that. And when you have an early retiree, and what I mean by an early retiree, I mean somebody 55 to 65. I do classify those as early retirees.
Well, they are now.
Yeah, I think they have one or two things. They have a pension, right?
Correct.
2, they have some form of employer-based retirement health care that would bridge them over to Social Security because the ACA did not do it, right? It's very, very expensive to bridge that. And you're also finding, well, I can go on my spouse's. She's still working. He's still working. Well, guess what? A lot of companies are saying, we're not covering your spouse anymore.
Yeah, it's no longer subsidized.
Right. So unless you have those in place or you have lived very, very small your whole life, and there are people who have done that and they just managed to save. I wrote an article about super savers, right?
Yep.
They saved close to 30% of their income on a consistent basis. They started doing that in their late 20s. If you're in that particular position, well, maybe you can, but for the most part, without some form of guaranteed income, it's going to be very tough to retire between 55 and 65. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen because I know we have a lot of great savers out there, or let's say manage their expectations very well, but it's going to be difficult without working some form of employment, part-time or consulting or something along those lines.
Well, historically, when we saw somebody retire so early, a lot of times it was, a reduction in the workforce. Many, many times we find it's an illness in the family or themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just not something you can't control. But one thing I am seeing a much bigger trend, Rich, that people are saying, you know what, I've had it. I want to get out of the rat race. I'm going to quit. And I may not retire, but I'm going to retire in all sense of the word from my career. And I may reinvent myself and find other ways to produce a little bit of income.
I want to do something different.
Yeah, that's
right. I'm still viable. I just don't want to work at this job anymore. I'm burned out. I want to teach. So that's very true. And if you do a plan and you add that in as a goal or an aspiration to get to that point and say, oh, well, how much would you make? You really, when you have a plan and it's in paper, you really start to understand or consider the fact that this can become a reality. If you don't have a strategy to get there, it's very, very tough. So that's the positive element of having a plan done where you have a roadmap. I understand the market's exciting. That's the exciting part. The plan part is not exciting. But we say all the time is you have a 7-layer cake and you only focus on one layer. Doesn't make a lot of sense when I have all these other layers that wrap around it. It's so important. It's so, and Social Security is a layer, or a guaranteed income structure is a layer. Remember Dr. Z. Bodie, who is a mentor of mine, Professor Bodie, who has written amazing books, and he always classifies retirement nirvana is when I have enough guaranteed income to actually take care of all my fixed expenses. It could be a combination of Social Security and pension, an annuity structure, but whatever it is, to say that, listen, no matter what, this income pays my bills that are fixed in nature, and my variable assets are for all the discretionary and fun stuff. That is a great place to be, and some people are able to do it. You can build your own pension. One way to do it, again, is to make sure that you take Social Security properly. It's not just your decision. If you're married or you have children, it is a family decision. When we come back, we'll talk about a few other things, and also in our next Retirement Right Lane class, maybe you all want to take a road trip tomorrow and join us. What do you think, Danny? Anybody want to take a 2-hour drive and join us tomorrow?
You need a driver?
Come on. Join us. Hey, we'll talk about that when we get back. Hey, you're listening to the Real Investment Show Financial Fitness Friday edition here on 700 KSEV, the voice of Texas.
Real Investment Show podcasts are now available on iTunes. Listen anyplace, anytime at iTunes.com.